have a presentation from Vincent Chu. Now, Vincent is consultant, container shipping markets at Drury, and many of you will be familiar with Drury, but I'm sure Vincent can explain further what Drury is all about. Today, Vincent will be presenting a topic, and his topic is Outlook for Container Freight, Shipping in the Year Ahead, 3 scenarios and possible outcomes. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you, Vincent, and it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So good afternoon, and in the last 2 years or so, we've all been living in a new container shipping universe. It's not unlike the Marvel superhero universe that we know, but the actors are still about the same, but some of the actors have gained new superpowers. And over the next 20 minutes or so, I will walk you all through the new universe and explore it. And at the end of the walk, I will introduce to you 3 new possible universes. 2 possibilities and 1 probability. So let's move ahead. But before I do that, I'll just want to let you know that I'll be using a lot of charts and graphs. And if you're wondering where I got all this from, it's from Drury Container Forecaster, the Container Capacity Insight, and Drury Benchmarking Club. So the Benchmarking Club is a platform in which BCOs, in which many of you are here, can benchmark your rates among your peers, anonymously, of course. So this is a good platform for BCOs to actually benchmark your contracted rates, not spot rates, but contracted rates among your peers globally. So let's start off. Let's start off with the container overview. So in this graph that you see, there are a few standouts. But the most obvious one would be that the pandemic has made a mountain out of the molehill. And this mountain is 600 billion. And in this 2021, 2022 is actually the forecast of the profit outlook for the container market. But what you don't see here is that the top 10 carriers controls 85% of the capacity. The top 8, 80%. And the top 5 carriers, and I'm not making this up, 65% of the world container capacity. So keep that in mind. Of course, profits doesn't equate capacity, but it's close. So, how did we come to this? We have another mountain here. This is Drury World Container Index. And you can see from back in 2019, it was below $2,000 per container. And it reached a height of above 10,000. Of course, if you multiply it by the millions of containers, then that's where you get your billions. It has come down somewhat, as you can see, in recent months, but it's still highly elevated. So why? Why did this happen? Well, the dominant drivers, demand aside, the dominant drivers of freight rates have been inefficiencies in the container system, disruptions, and port congestions. But the key driver of rates has been the impact of lower port productivity on effective capacity. As you can see in the graph, the blue chart is actually the effective capacity, and the blue bar is the effective capacity, and the mustard bar is the normal capacity. So you can see how the inefficiencies in the port system globally have affected the capacity available in the market. Minus 17% in 2021, and similar, slightly better forecasted for 2022. We expect 2023 to have improvements, but with current situation and new developments, we may have to revise this forecast. Next, so when would this end? So let's look at a few facts. What you see is now two hills, no more mountains. And the blue line indicates the world container throughput, at least the forecasted one by Drewry. The mustard line represents the world container fleet growth. So you can see the first mismatch is somewhere in 2021. And there is a bigger mismatch in 23 and 24. But does this mean that the party is going to end for the carriers? We shall see. But something to note, what is not shown in this graph, in which the second gap is the order book for new vessels. The order book for new vessels, old habits die hard. Carriers are ordering vessels like no tomorrow. So it's the new vessel order book is close to 23% or above. To put this in perspective, I think you read about MSC, which have overtaken Maersk recently to be the largest container carrier in terms of capacity in the world. So this 23% is above 5 million TEUs. That means, effectively, one more MSC is coming into the market. In fact, more than one more MSC, and one more Yangming over the next few years. So that is a fact. So, as I say again, does it mean the end of the party for the shipping lines? Let's move forward and take a look. Okay, before we move on to the scenarios, let's take a look at a few market trends. you can see that there are a lot of uncertainty and market threats confronting us. First of all, you have the geopolitical threat, the Ukraine war. You can see the level of uncertainty is very high. Although the disruption impact on container shipping itself is limited, but it has far-reaching geopolitical and economic impact. Then, of course, we have the inflation, which is on everybody's lips since last year. But this year is in everybody's pocket. So you are feeling it, and everybody's feeling it in almost every country in the world. And uncertainty, very high. And it can possibly affect demand. And the third one is China lockdown. I will touch on this a little bit more later on. But the uncertainty level is extremely high, and so is the disruption impact. So this is the one that we are looking at in the near term. I'll touch on it later on. Of course, we have fuel prices. It affects every industry. But definitely, as a transport industry in shipping, it will have immediate impact. In terms of BAF, everyone here knows about the BAF. Then you have the negotiation at port in the US West Coast that you heard about. It has potentially a big disruption impact. But from the news that we receive, the chances of it becoming a problem is not so great this time around. But if it does, it will have a great impact. It will be US West Coast, Long Beach 2.0. And lastly, we have IMO 2023, decarbonization. I will touch on this a little bit more because I know that there's a lot of, there may be some misunderstanding and a lot of uncertainty about it. And I know the carriers have been warning clients about this IMO 2023. So what is this IMO 2023? Well, it is not, if you all recall, there is an IMO 2020. So 2020, it's a hard start. January 1st, 2020, there's a limit on sulfur levels on fuel oil. But IMO 2023, it's not a hard start. It starts in 2023, yes, but it obliges vessel owners to decarbonize over a period of time. So it's not immediate, but carriers have to take action. What action must they take, or what will they take? You can see on the screen. Number 3 and 4. Number 1 and 2 is costs. So if carriers' costs increase, well, they'll try and pass it on. Number 3 and 4, reduce speed, decommission and scrap older vessels. These two are very real and have a big impact. You know, the last 2 years, there's been very few vessels being scrapped. Every vessel that they can put their hands on is put into the water. Very few vessels are being repaired and dry docked. Why? They want every vessel to be on the water. So what this can happen, okay, IMO 2023, is slow steaming. If you sail the vessel slower, there is less carbon emission. But that also means that capacity is affected, transit time is affected. And this will be the main consideration of IMO 2023. But let's move on to current challenges. What's immediately ahead of us? This is a graph using Dury AIS-based port congestion index. So if you look at the green portion, that is the area in which the ports are operating efficiently. The yellow is in between, and the red means it is congestion, serious congestion. The higher it goes, the more serious it is. So if you take a closer look, the lines represent the various ports in Asia, Europe, Middle East subcontinent, North America. Of course, North America, you can see there was not enough space in the graph in 2021. It went above the graph. But what is significant when you look at this graph is that the ports in 2022 is moving higher, not lower. The congestion is moving towards the red portion. So while everyone thought that 2022 will be the start of reduced port congestions, but in reality, it's showing increasing port congestions. And that itself is very worrying. And this has implications, as you guys probably know better. Unpredictable arrival of ships. So up to 30% of vessels arrive 7 days or more after scheduled arrival days. And those are, what you see on the graph is just some examples. Longer lead times. Between last year and this year, we are seeing longer lead times, up to 9 days in general, on average. So, you guys are well aware of the implications of longer lead times and unpredictable arrival times, and what it means to your inventories, and what it means to your forward ordering, and what it means to your contingencies. So another a point that we wanted to, that I mentioned earlier, that I want to highlight, is the Shanghai Lockdown. It has a big impact in the container network. Out of the 10 biggest ports, busiest ports in the world, 7 is in China. And Shanghai is at the top of the list. It's 10 million TEUs more than Singapore. But as you know, the volumes are mainly import and export. while Singapore is mainly on transshipment. And close to 1/3 of world container volumes move in and out of China. So anything that happens in China doesn't stay in China. So that is something that you have to keep in mind. Another data that is not shown on the graph here is the lockdown that is still ongoing, actually, in Shanghai. Drewry China has estimated that in April alone, there's a backlog of 260,000 TEUs of export cargo. That means 10 fully loaded 10,000 TEU vessels is needed to take up the slack once Shanghai opens. And if you look at summertime, it's the normal peak season, right? So you throw this 260,000 into the fray. Well, you can imagine the disruption that would happen at the destinations, not to mention at the origin. So this is a big concern. And disruptions equals, as you know, rates, affects rates, among other things, of course. So, what about the recovery scenarios, which I mentioned earlier on? Well, there are three scenarios. The first one is what jury feels is most likely. The other two are possibilities. So there will be slowdown in demand, as we can see. That's what has been forecasted, as we have shown you earlier. And what we are also expecting is carriers, while carriers are deploying additional capacity, as we know, of course it phases in 2023, 2024, 2025, it's all not coming in one year. But carriers will exercise discipline. And the shipping market disruptions, which started in 2020, will finally end, but this may deserve another look. So this is what jury feels would be the most likely scenario. The reason for the three scenarios will be we need to make contingencies for each of these scenarios. So if it's scenario 1, what do you need to do? Or what do you want to do? If scenario 2, what do you need to do? And what do you want to do? And likewise for scenario 3. So what is behind our forecast? Well, the first point will be port productivity. So there's a huge collapse in productivity when COVID started. And we expect this productivity to improve as we go into 2023. However, with the latest developments, there may be a big question mark on this matter. And as I mentioned, deserves another look. The other point would be effective capacity. So not only port productivity increases, we have also real nominal capacity, new vessels coming in. So what the US forecasted is the net effect will be more than 15% year on year. So this is the basis for Dury putting scenario A as the most likely outcome. We have also made some poll among our customers and experts, and you can see the feedback. More than 51, in fact, 87% say no chance for this year. And 51% say first half. And 37% say second half of 2023. But if you look carefully, this survey was done in February 18. That's even before the Russian special operations and the Shanghai Lockdown. So you have thought that this was surveyed after these two events, but it's before. So if we make a poll today, I suspect it will be a little bit different. So there's still a final billion-dollar burning question. Will freight rates come down from current levels back to pre-pandemic levels? The short answer to that is, short of a collapse in demand, very unlikely. So you may ask, what then does demand supply make a difference? Is it relevant? Well, based on Dury's market experience and forecasting model in recent years, he has showed that the main driver of freight rates is no longer demand-supply balance. It's still important, of course. So the evidence show that how the policies that carriers adopt in response to demand shocks has become just as important. How disciplined they are in pricing and capacity. And all of us know that the carriers are now a different animal from they are 2-3 years ago. So they are cash rich, and they are in the driver's seat, and I don't think they are in a hurry to hand over the wheels to anybody else. So they will try their best to future-proof their business. But there are other factors as well, as we touched on earlier, right? The inherent container network inefficiencies, port congestions, inland points, bottlenecks. All these are important factors as well. Spot rates and contract rates, how they interplay with each other, is becoming a driver in itself. In the medium term, we have decarbonization, we have carbon pricing, which will start in Europe. All these are going to be factors affecting freight rates. So it's becoming more complex to forecast freight rates these days, and as some of the speakers have spoken yesterday, it's becoming a hot topic even in the boardroom. And amidst all this uncertainty, there's one certainty: jury will be there to help you guys. So with that, thank you very much.